Okay, guys, feet together. And alright, guys, so I don't know if you've noticed over the past couple of days that I am very badly injured in one leg. So I can't really make stances, can't really step forward and back, definitely can't kick. I can't really do karate, really, but the show must go on. So we're going to try our best to put a class together and use my beautiful assistants in the background to help me show some of the points I'm going to be talking about. What I want to try and do is take basic parts of our kihon that we use day to day, talk about what I personally think are the important points and sort of important details of that kihon and how it helps our karate, how it helps our body mechanics, our performance overall, and then slowly but surely take the sort of standard kihon elements out of it, only leaving the core principles and being a bit freer with our movements towards the end of the class, yeah? So hopefully you get something out of that, guys, yeah? So first of all, if you guys hope to stay Zenjutsu that. Okay, and I just want you to put your hands on your hips and just basically warm up, rotate into Hami Shoten. Ich, ni, san, shi, go, rock, sich, hach, ku, aju. And I'm speaking part of this time, maybe. Ich, ni, san, shi, go, rock, sich, hach, ku, jo. And hands high, change. And again, nice and slow, just warming up. Ich, ni, san, shi, go, rock, sich, hach, ku, aju. And again, speed power. Ich, ni, san, shi, go, rock, sich, hach, ku, aju. And yeah, we have relaxed, guys. Cool. So, like, our Zenkutsu dash is sort of the staple of Shotokan karate, yeah? Really long, really deep stances. It's kind of what Shotokan karate is best known for, yeah? And when we do that, like, there's certain restrictions that we're putting on ourselves. One being in a long stance makes it difficult to move forward and back. And also keeping our heels down on the floor, that's something that's really emphasized. And we're coming up through the grades, is keeping our heels down to the floor and connected to the floor with our heels being our anchor point. So what I like to think about is why we do that, because when we do kumite, when I throw punches not in a deep stance, I'm always on the balls of my feet. Whenever I do any sort of athletic movement, I'm always on the balls of my feet. So why do we not do karate on our toes? Why are we putting our heels down? And I'm like having a look at it and seeing what kind of benefits we get from keeping our heel on the floor. So if Bruce Sensei puts his heel, turns his face this way and makes a Zenjutsu dash and has his heel on the floor, what he's doing when he's rotating his hips back and forward is he's taking his calf here out of the equation. So when he rotates back and forth, keeping that heel on the floor, he's relying on different muscle groups in order to fire his hip forward and pull his hip back. So like what we normally do with the calf we normally use to spring our body forward, for jumping, for sprinting, we're always on the balls of the feet using that muscle. By taking that away, we're forced to use the muscles that are a bit more difficult to control, isolate, and develop to twitch quickly, like the bottom one, glute, yeah? Really important in the quad. So what I want you to do, guys, just now, it's just a practice to kind of isolate your glutes and your quads. We're going to do it in 1 second. Just one more time though. What I want you to do when you make the Zenkutsu dash is think about, rather than just straightening your leg, is think about squeezing your glute, squeezing your quad in order to send your hip forward quickly. So rather than just relying on moving your hips without any sort of thought process, think about isolating these two muscles. The quad to fire from your leg and the glute to send that hip forward into that showman position. Yeah, so just practice that a few times by yourself, using these two muscle groups to drive your hip forward. Just give that a try, guys. Let me have a look at you, see how you go. Yeah. So guys, maybe connection's a little bit of an issue today. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. The internet connection's a bit funny. All I want you to do, guys, is just from front stance, rotate back and forward. Focus on keeping your heel on the floor and firing from your quads and your glute to send your hip forward. These 2 points here to send your things forward. Once you've done it a few times, guys, cheese legs, try the other side. Yummy. So, guys, our screen's all but completely frozen, so I don't know if you're doing it or not. I'm going to assume that you can still hear me. Yeah, somebody give me a thumbs up if you can still hear me and see me. Cool, thumbs up, excellent. All right, so I'm just going to assume that you guys are perfect, yeah? So all we're going to do now is just an exercise to isolate our glutes in particular, yeah? We use our quads quite a lot, like standing up, sitting down, but our glutes are something that can be quite difficult to get a grasp of in terms of twitching to fire our techniques out. So all we're going to do is an exercise that focuses on this sort of glute isolation, yeah? So all Rusey's going to do is just face side on, and all he's going to do is he's going to go from a kind of almost squatted position with his tailbone out, and all he's going to do is drive his hips forward by squeezing his glute to his absolute maximum, and then his legs catch up. So he's sending his hips forward, hip thrusting in. Each. No. Okay. So what's important, like Ruth says that about a lot of you do it, try not to jump. You want your feet to stay on the floor for as long as possible. So your feet are playing catch up with the rest of your body. Try again for me, Ruth Sensei. Let me see. So he's going to, if we do it slowly, he's going to engage, 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 engage. Engage, 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 engage. Hips forward. Ready? Try again. Each. Better, better. And turn. Again, ready. Knee. That's it. And one more time. Sa. So you see, he's trying to send his body all the way in from that glute firing, yeah? From that firing from his glutes to send his whole body forward, yeah? Really low down, really use your glutes to send your body forward. Scott says he's going to do it the proper way, yeah? Oh, just like that, guys, just like that. Okay, give it a try. So to my count, we'll go. So just do it once, turn back, turn, keep changing, yeah? Shouldn't need too much space. Ready, to the count. Ready, each. And turn, knee. Sun. Good. She. Go. Good one, Hank. Very nice. Rook. Siege. Touch. And again, coop. And Joe. Excellent, excellent. And relax, and relax, and relax. So, hopefully you're all feeling that maximum glute compression there as you're driving forward. That's the same feeling I want you to do when you rotate your hips in. So one more time, just big zen good scratch. Just big zen good scratch. Okay, and just make hammy. Just pull back into hammy. Okay, I just want you to focus on that glute squeeze to drive your hips forward. Ready? Good, and slowly back. Drive it fast. Feet. That's it. And again. Top. And cheek. Go. Rook. And siege. And touch. And coop. And one more. Joe. Okay, and change legs. And again, just this hand on your back. So really focus on firing that glute. Super fast twitch from that back side. Ready? Each. And again. Knee. Tap. Tree. Go. And rook. Siege. Touch. Coop. And Joe. Good. And relax. So guys, hopefully that makes a little bit of difference to how you're twitching into that shoulder position, yeah? The second thing I want to talk about in terms of stance structure is what we're doing with our front and back knee. So we're obviously straightening our leg, driving our hips in. What's important is that when we do that, our stance isn't disrupted by that movement. We want the structure of our stance to remain the whole way through. So I want my knees to feel like I'm on a set of train tracks. They're not going to change direction. Both knees are going to point forward. So when Ruth makes his front stance and he rotates his hip, what he's doing is he's constantly micromanaging his stance with his inner and outer thigh muscles. His back knee should always be pointing forward. Every time he rotates, this back leg is squeezing in. So if I pull against Bruce's leg, his leg doesn't move because he's constantly pulling his knee in towards himself. So every time he rotates, he has this squeeze of that supporting leg. He rotates back, that squeeze of that supporting leg. So that back inner thigh muscle constantly engaged, always engaged. The front leg, however, changes from outside to inside. So when you rotate forward, our knee naturally wants to follow the direction of our hip. You've got to activate these inner thigh muscles to make sure that that doesn't happen. So when he rotates forward, these inner thigh muscles are squeezing in order to keep that front knee still. When he rotates into hammy, the knee naturally wants to follow the way he's going. He's going to actively use his IT band to push his knee out the way as he opens up into hammy. So he's constantly squeezing his knee in when he rotates into showman, pushing his knee out when he rotates into hammy. So his knee's constantly going in the opposite direction of his hip. And that creates that stable structure, guys. So all I want to do is practice that for a second. Just with your back leg, keeping that knee still, and all I want you to do is just shift your weight back to forward with your hips. And when you come back, keep that knee pointing forward. When you go forward, keep that knee pointing straight. So that inner thigh muscle is always engaged in working, and your knee, when you're rotating back and shifting your weight back and forward, is always facing straight. Let's give that a quick try, guys. Go for it. Let me have a look at you. Sensei. Yeah. That's it, guys. Good. Complete inner thigh muscle connection, yeah? Yeah, so guys, still quite a few of these guys doing this, rotating your hips quite quickly. You're looking like, and you're looking either looking down at your knee. Two things are happening. You're looking down at your knee and sticking your backside out, or you're twisting really quickly and your knee's still moving from out to in. Try and get your front foot pointing as far forward as you can, and even if your foot's going out to the side, my knee's still squeezing in. You want to feel like if somebody was to pull against your knee, you're fighting against that all the time. I'm constantly pulling my knee in this way. So it doesn't matter which way my hips rotate, that squeeze is always there, yeah? Just make sure you're really focusing on that point, guys. Give it a couple more seconds. Good, okay. And then with that front knee, just a bit like how I sort of gain control of that front knee. I just constantly had one finger on my front leg. One finger on my front leg, and when I rotate, I just make sure that my knee doesn't pull away from that finger. So you can use that as a guide. You can even use the wall if you want, but just have some sort of way of knowing whether your knee is following your hip when you rotate, or if you can keep it completely still as you rotate in and out, guys. Yeah. So just a couple of seconds. Just make sure you're keeping that control of your front leg. Okay, give it a try. We have a look at these. Good, guys. Good. One down, keep moving. Okay, guys. Good, Yami. So some people get in the hang of that, some people still struggling. That's something that anytime that I'm doing any sort of kihon, I'm always thinking about keeping the structure of my stance. Not just in Zenkuchi, but in Kibanashi, Kokuchi, whatever stance you're doing, you always have to be able to move your upper body whilst keeping that structure, to be able to fire from your legs whilst keeping that structure. Okay, so that's an important principle to have, is that ability to control your stance. Yeah. Okay, so second thing, guys. So that is from Zenkuchi. From that Zenkuchi, we're learning about the strength of our inner thigh muscles. our heel stays down to learn how to fire from our glutes and our quad. It also helps with the flexibility of our hips in here. By keeping our heel down and rotating in with that shimmy, we're putting a lot of stretch on this front hip flexor. So very good for flexibility. Also, ankle flexibility is super important. Now I want to talk about the upper body a little bit when we're doing. So all I want you to do is just put your left hand out, right hand make Hiki-te, and just punch Yakuzuki. Ready? Each. And hold. And from there, pull your hips back, punch Kazamazuki. Knee. Good. Yakuzuki. Tap. Shi. Go. Rock. See. Touch. Cook. Joe. That's it again. Each. Knee. Tap. Shi. Go. Roll. Teach. Touch. Cool. And Joe. And hand side change. And again, punching Yakuzuki. Ready? Each. Kazamazuki. Knee. Tan. Chi. Go. Rock. See. Touch. Cook. Joe. Last hand. Each. Knee. Tan. Chi. Go. Rock. Teach. Touch. Cook. And Joe. Hey, yummy. I'm relaxed. So guys, hopefully now that we added in some upper body parts of this movement, we didn't forget completely about our stance. Guarantee quite a few of you went back to wobbly knees and not using your glutes. You've got to always think about that inner thigh muscle connection, fire from your quad, fire from your glute the whole time. No matter what punch we're doing, we're either loading up or firing. So keep those principles in mind, guys. So with the upper body, a couple of things like, again, thinking about why we do things in the kihon. Like I've had a lot of time to think now that I've been injured. Practically, why Hiki-te? Like, why do we make this shape? This is very unique to karate. Every other kind of martial art kind of has a high guard, and in our kumite we have a high guard. So why do we spend so much time pulling our hands to our hip? Some people argue it's the pulling hand and you're grabbing and hitting something. Maybe that's a benefit to training this. You have a strong grip and pull, possibly. People say it helps with the power of your technique. I would argue that this adds no power to your technique. You only need one side of your body to create power. But I would say the main thing that I think we use Hiki-te for is to learn how to lock in or relax. And you think about the position of Hiki-te like isn't up high, it's down low. And I think by having the hand down low, it stops us from bringing our shoulders up and it teaches us to bring everything down, lock or relax in. So with this Hiki-te position, we're constantly, if you're doing it properly, you should constantly be in an engaged position with your shoulders. You think like if you lift your shoulders up, drop them down, what muscles are engaged, and make that Hiki-te position. It doesn't change the structure of the muscles that are used by putting that hand there. So I think by constantly having this position when we're doing techniques, it's teaching us to keep our lats engaged and shoulders down. That's one thing. The other thing is this stretch that we get with our chest. When we punch, we're going from a state of our muscles being stretched, like we talk about the stretch shorten cycle, going from a stretched position to a engaged position, yeah? From a relaxed position to a engaged position. And this Hiki-te constantly makes sure that our front delt and our upper chest here is completely relaxed. We're engaged a lot at the back, very relaxed at the front. And it's the upper chest and front delt are the main muscles that we're using when we're sending our hands out. If you do like 100 punches, you're not going to feel it in your triceps or anywhere else in your arm. You're going to feel it in this part here, yeah? In your front delts and upper chest. So those are the points that we're trying to like relax and open up so we can develop this quick twitch to fire that punch out. So that's the other thing. The third thing is it teaches you how to relax. And that's in a funny way. If we put our emphasis on the pulling hand on this Hiki-te, it allows us to fire the other hand out with relative relaxation, yeah? You obviously have that moment of kini at the end when you lock your core and everything. We'll talk about that in a second. But if I focus on the pulling hand, this hand is allowed to then fire at maximum speed with no extra tension. If I focus on the punching hand, that's when everything starts to come up and my want to be strong ends up limiting my ability to be strong. So by focusing on Hiki-te, we end up allowing the doing arm to go without any sort of restrictions. So that's what I want you to think about Hiki-te, guys. So what I want you to do is make this double Hiki-te position here. I can do this. And think about squeezing your elbows in as tight as you can and getting this maximum stretch of your chest. Then from that maximum stretch, all you're going to do is quickly fire your hands out as fast as you can. This double punch. Ready? Each. And slowly back. And again. Knee. And back. Tan. And back. Shi. and back. Go, and back. Rook, and back. Seat, and back. Hatch, and back. Coop, and back. And one more. Jump, and back. Good. This time, guys, I don't want you to hold the punch out. As soon as you have that maximum snap, I want you to just relax back to your technique. So maximum stretch, fast as you can, snap out. Don't hold on to any tension. As soon as you snap out, slowly let it recoil back to that start position. Okay? Another 10, I'm going to watch. Ready? Ich. Knee. Sap. Shi. Go. Rook. Sich. Hatch. Coop. Andrew. Okay, Anya. So with this drill, guys, some people looking kind of comfortable with their elbows sitting in this kind of natural position. This is like a drill for like emphasizing it and really highlighting that part, like the use of Hiki-te. So I want you to try and pull back to your maximum. Yeah, it should be quite uncomfortable to keep this position. My rhomboids, my back muscles are super engaged. It's really difficult to keep my elbows in this position without letting fire. Yeah, so make sure you go to your maximum. Second thing is, remember what I said about trying to keep everything locked down? Quite a few of you come to this position and already starting to lift your shoulders up. And they're staying up as you punch. Maybe you don't realize it. You want to try and make sure that when you're in this position, just bring everything back down, yeah? Strong core, strong lats engaged. Try and think closing your armpits when you're making this position. And try and maintain that feeling in the lower half of your body as you snap out and back. You don't want to have this becoming loose and coming up. You want to think, squeeze everything down and maintain that squeeze as you fire out and back. You're just also adding the squeeze of that chest and shoulder when we're firing, yeah? So try and keep everything down, okay? Last thing, just watch your center. A few people, guys, when they're driving forward, sticking their backsides out. Again, glutes engaged as you're in this position. When you're firing, glutes should engage, core should engage, everything should be nice and tight as you're making that punch going. Let it go and stick your backside out. Glutes, inner thigh muscles, keep that nice structure. Ready? 10 more. Each. Hey. Tuck. She. Go. Rook. Sich. Hatch. Coop. And Joe. Hey, yummy. Good. Okay, excellent. So, back to our second push attach, back to this Yakuzuki just now, yeah? For Sensei. Okay, and just turn it at a slight angle there. Yes, just so you can see your body. So, guys, so now, from the start, heel on the floor, forces us to use the quad, and the glute. We're making sure that our stance structure doesn't change. So that inner and outer thigh muscle control in the back leg. Now thinking about this shoulders down, lats engaged on this Hiki-te point. Now focusing on pulling this hand back so that this arm, when it's fired out, is super relaxed. Relying on the fast twitch from our chest and front dip. Okay? So Yakuzuki, nice and easy. Ready? Each. Good. And Kazamazuki, the exact same principles apply on the other side. Knee. Good. Ta. Chi. Go. Rook. Sich. Hatch. Coop. Joe. Excellent. And change. Hands tight. Same on the other side. Yakuzuki. Ready. Each. Knee. Ta. Chi. Go. Rook. Sich. Hatch. Coop. And Joe. Excellent. And yummy, guys. Good. Okay, the last thing, guys. So those are all the elements that I'm wanting to focus on when I'm doing my Yakuzuki. Now I just have to make sure they're all firing at the right time. The timing is probably the most important part to bring it all together, yeah? So when Sensei is here, you'll see a lot of things. One thing you'll see is people going hip first quite a lot. Their hip will go first and their hand will come after. That tends to happen because their hip's got a very small rotation to make. It travels a very small distance when it rotates its hip even smaller. It's a very small movement. The arm has quite a big movement to go all the way in. So the timing is tricky to get. We always tend to have that off time of hip and hand. And there's ways we can make that powerful For example, that straight shot and saying, Sensei was teaching an excellent class the other day, where he stepped threw everything in and that arm was kind of slingshotted in at the end. That's an excellent way of delivering power, but only at the end of the technique. If the distance changes, you need to be able to connect from the very start. So from this start point, we need to be able to have his hip and hand have an impact at the start, at the middle, towards the end, and at the very end. And having that full synchronization is the way that you're going to be able to train that. So from this position, guys, all I want to do is really slowly have your hand and hip starting at the same time and finishing at the same time. So go slow, because what will happen is your hip is always going to move faster than your hand. You need to slowly get the timing, get the muscle memory to have these two starting and finishing together. Slowly, each. Start and finish together and go back. Ni. And again, together. San. And back. Shi. Go. Ro. Si. Ha. Ku. Ju. Leave it faster. Each. Ni. San. Shi. Go. Ro. Siege, hatch, ku, ju, weave it faster, each, ni, san, shi, go, rook, siege, hatch, ku, ju. Okay, last 10 guys by yourself, as fast as you can, whilst trying your best to maintain that synchronization. Okay, 10 by yourself, on each side. Ready, go. As intense as possible. It's certainly very difficult. It's something that I think quite a lot of us are still working on to try and perfect, because it is a very, very tough ask to do. But that's something, like, again, these points are all points that I'm trying to think about when I'm doing something as simple as Yakuzuki. I'm never just mindlessly doing it. I'm always thinking of each point of that sort of chain that I've described so far and each aspect of the punch. So hopefully that sort of gives you a little bit more depth in why we do things the way that we do. Now, in saying that, they're excellent training tools. Making Hiki-te, keeping our heel on the floor, I just listed the benefits of what they're trying to do and how that can help us train. Isolating those muscle groups and training our muscles in those ways is really a really excellent way of teaching us that total body control and being able to fire and use our body in a multitude of ways. But you also need to practice that to a certain extent. A lot of people can end up being sort of have the blinkers on and go down the sort of tunnel of the kind of JK kihon sort of standard, which is an excellent it's a training tool, an excellent training tool, but at the end of the day, it is just a training tool. There's not a lot of practical application or sense to what you're doing. And the sense of training is excellent. Other than that, it has to be put to the side and only take the fundamental principles that we're practicing when we're doing the technique. So principles like hip rotation, driving from the glutes and the quad, that snap of our chest and shoulder, those elements that they're isolating are the principles that we need to practice. We can then use them without having those sort of limiting aspects of our technique on. So what we're going to do now is just practice a little bit freer, but still keep the things in mind. So first things first, guys, like Hiki-te, all the benefits that we have with Hiki-te, lats engaged, stretching our chest and being able to have that snap, allowing us focusing on this in order to relax our punch out. But in terms of having an effective guard, it's useless. So you want to be able to have the same benefits of Hiki-te without needing Hiki-te. So all the way to do, guys, is to just make a short, natural stance and just put your hands at your cheeks. Here, that's like so very basic boxing guard. So my hands are protecting my chin, my elbows are protecting my ribs, I'm nice and tight. Try not to have your wrists up and elbows out. I see a lot of my kids doing this when I was practicing with them this week. You want to make sure that stays nice and straight. And arms, again, nice and loose. We're not tensing up. We're just keeping our shoulders down and lats engaged. That's all. Instead of being in a long zen dash, we're in this short stance. So now, I don't want you to have your heel on the floor. We've practiced using our quad and glute. I want you to use your quad and glute and now add in one of the strongest muscles is this calf muscle, yeah? And using that sort of strong arch of the book that Scott Sensei talks about, we've been training with him over the lockdown. He talks about the strength that we have that we create, sorry, the explosive power we create when we're bouncing off that ball of the foot and using our calf. So we're going to add to our back leg drive with that calf muscle now. So heels can be off the floor. In terms of timing is a lot easier because my elbow and hip are in the same position. This, my arm has much further to travel. When my elbows are at my hips, it's almost the same distance now, yeah? So the timing becomes much easier. Okay, so with those things in mind, all I like to do is still firing from the chest, still keeping the core engaged, firing from your glute. I just like to put this right hand yakizuki out from this natural position. So from here, heel off the floor, glute squeeze, core engaged, lat down, chest snap, fire that punch out, and from this nice relaxed position. Ready? Each. Very good. And again, knee. San. Shi. Go. Rock. Sit. Touch. Coup. And do. And the same thing from this position, guys. Think. Hip together, that timing, that again, that push from your back glute to throw that front hand out. Same thing. Ready? Each. Knee. San. Shi. Go. Rock. Sit. Touch. Coup. Do. Excellent. So you can see how those principles are still there, even though we've totally lost that long zenku to that Hiki-te, that sort of traditional kihon looking aspect of our karate. The principles are still there, we're just in a much more natural position. And the same principles apply not just to Kazamazuki and Yakuzuki, but Mawashizuki, Uruzuki, or hook or uppercut, whatever you want to call it, the same things apply. What I see though is habitually, because we do so much kihon, when people try and then change the angles of their punches, they end up doing stuff like this. And still kind of making that Yakuzuki style punch with a kind of over twist of their body. And it drives me a little bit crazy. So what I want you to do, guys, is just think, the structure of your arm, that 90-degree angle, you're just going to keep, and all you're going to do, I never talked about straightening the arm once, yeah? I talked about firing from the shoulder and chest. I want you to keep your arm at a 90-degree angle and just fire from your shoulder and chest with the same principles. Principles don't change, just the direction of my punch changes. So from there, I'm still heel off the floor, glute squeeze, core, lats down, shoulder and chest, driving my punch, in and round. In and round, yeah? Washizuki or hook. Ready? Try. Each. Knee. San. Shi. Go. Rock. Sit. Touch. Coup. And do. Same thing goes for the front one. We're just firing from that chest and shoulder. Round, time with that rotation as we go in. For this one, guys, even from here, I'll go show you my other leg. If I've got my front leg forward, I can even rotate in with this front leg. I'll talk about that in a minute. So what I want you to do is not just rotate with your body here and keep your knee out, but allow your foot to rotate in this time, yeah? Allow your foot to rotate in. So, ball of the foot, heel pivot, turn your hip and shoulder over, snap from your chest. That front Mawashizuki. Ready? Each. Ready? Knee. San. Shi. You can see AJ Sensei's already dropping that Hiki-te hand down when he punches, yeah? Go! Yeah, rock! Keep those hands up. Sit! Touch! Again, coup! And go! Yes, guys, quite a few people habitually making like this Hiki-te position as they punch, or starting their punches from down here and doing that. And that's an example of when our kihons become so habitual, we can't naturally easily break that form for something more practical. And that becomes a problem with the amount of kihon that we do. Fantastic for training our body, but if it becomes our sort of go-to scenario when we're actually trying to apply techniques, we're going to have a problem. So try your best not to allow your hands to drop. That's the first common mistake in this kind of training. Everyone drops their hand down Hiki-te. Keep that hand up. Again, Hiki-te doesn't help the power of my punch. You just, all it does is for this hand is help it relax. But from here, hopefully in this stage, you're kind of relaxed and loosen up because you're focusing on just firing from that chest and shoulder. And no point in say any tension in the arms, yeah? So be nice and loose and let these hands go. Don't even worry about making fists, yeah? Just have your hands nice and loose at the moment. me and Tommy Sensei in San Diego done an experiment where we tried to punch each other really hard with eggs in our hand. You don't need to make a fist to make that strong, yeah? We tried our hardest, we couldn't break the egg. And very, very conclusive results for that, yeah? So from there, make sure that all you're doing, having your fist and elbow in line and firing with those same principles, yeah? Just try it a few times, guys. Just that Owashi-zuki coming round, okay? And your own time, let me have a look at you. Go for it. And yeah, guys, we're going to go Glute Sensei, Glute Sensei here. Okay, and what I want to do, hopefully you can see the legs, guys. Put their legs forward, guys. Okay, and just alternate from left to right. Watch the legs, guys. Ready, go. Keep going. Okay, so very good, but all wrong. So from here, if I borrow Glute Sensei, so AJ Sensei, you can see his feet were still planted. So he's like, especially his front leg. When I talked about front leg rotating in, his front leg wasn't moving at all. So when he's doing that, he's kind of stuck in that kihon form of locking in to the floor. We can still engage our inner thigh muscles on the balls of our feet, and that's what I'm going to talk about just now. Ryu Sensei, on the other hand, was rotating both feet. So he was on the balls of his feet, is rotating, but both feet were moving side to side. What's important when we do Yakuzuki is we have this kind of strong point to sort of bounce and focus our energy into. If I don't have this sort of wall built with my front leg to channel that energy into that one point, it kind of can go off out of control. And the same as when you're hooking. So from here, what I want you to try and do, guys, is when you rotate, everyone's doing with the back leg, the heel's coming up, and we're rotating into that front leg as normal, just like Yakuzuki position, yeah? So Ryu Sensei is going to do that. He's going to keep that front knee still, rotate everything in, and everything's kind of coming out into this focal point here. Oh, nice. Okay. And then when he goes off the front leg, I want this exact same thing with this back one. So this back end of the thigh muscle is going to squeeze, and his hips are going to come round into this focal point here, this squeeze. So now he's coming around here, and that's the same direction as the punch. So each time he's rotating in to a solid sort of wall that we've created with that internal tension in our stance for our technique to kind of bounce off of, yeah? And that's what I want to try and do. So think about that inner thigh muscle engagement as you're rotating into each of these techniques, yeah? Give it another try, go. Yeah, one more thing, guys. Still quite a few of you punching from down this angle and coming up with the punch, and you end up with this kind of like almost like Yuki position with your hand, and you're kind of punching here. Have that elbow and wrist in the same line. It's in the same line the whole way when you go out and punch Chokuzuki, Yakuzuki. The same principle when you're bringing it around. The structure doesn't change. Yeah, the line of our structure doesn't change. It's just the angle of our arm. It's the same thing from there to there, that same line the whole way through, yeah? Okay, so next one, moving on quickly, just check the time, run out of time. This time I just want you to come up with the next one. The same principles apply with my legs, hips, shoulders, it all stays the same. All I'm doing is dropping slightly in order to snap instead of forward, snap up the way. But it's still this chest and shoulder snap in order to send my hand up. 1 and 2, same footwork. Ready, go. Good, guys. Very nice, very nice, very nice. Okay, so last time, just a little challenge. Just make sure you're switched on. We want to try and make the principles habitual, but the way that we train them just a tool that we can discard or pick up whenever we want. So just a little mental exercise. I want you to just think. So the front hand, number 1, back hand, number 2, front hook, 3, back hook, 4, front uppercut, 5, back uppercut 6. So you have this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to shout out numbers. I want you to throw the punches, no tension, only focusing on those elements that we've talked about, yeah? Just a little exercise, just keep switched on. Okay, so when I shout out the numbers, you do it. Ready? 1, 1, 2, 2, 4, 4. Oh, too slow, Hiki-sensei. 4, 6, 5. Oh, wrong wrist, 5, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, guys, very good. So hopefully, like that, a little bit of the end, but hopefully you see how the principles that we have in Kazamushi, Yakuzuki, and our kihon still apply when we start freeing up our technique. And it's super important that you're able to use those tools and be aware of what you're trying to achieve by doing that very unusual movement, which is Shotokan kihon, and then be able to put it down and keep what we're practicing, keep the principles and use them in that sort of free flow, and just as a simple exercise as in changing the way that we're punching, yeah? It shouldn't be that different. It should feel very similar the whole way through, yeah? Do we have any questions? You have 5 seconds.
What's the Japanese term for this?
Sensei, I have a question.
The Japanese term is boxing training.
Boxing training.
Boxing training. Also known as boxing training. Okay, cool guys. So we're going to finish with a little physical challenge, a little exercise. Just talking about like again, emphasizing that should be no tension in our arms when we punch. We're just going to do a little flow exercise with our arms, just like short, low uppercut. And all I want you to think about is how we're using that chest and delt to fire these hands up, so nice and smooth. We're going to do a little Tabata set with it, yeah? So 20 seconds as fast as we can, 10 seconds rest, 20 seconds as fast as we can, 10 seconds rest, and hopefully you don't feel any tension anywhere in your arms, only in the muscles that we require to fire, okay? Here is the remote control. Okay, guys, so we've got a clock that should beep. If you don't hear the beep, just go and see Sensei moving really fast. Yeah? Is he ready boxing Sensei is going to put up a boxing training with this guy up on the board, the Japanese boards. Okay, are we ready? So, guys, as fast as we can. Ready? And 3, 2, 1, go! Yummy, rest. 3, 2, 1, go!
Everybody should switch off.
Rest. Only 2 more, guys, 2 more. Fast as you can. Fast, 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 fast. Last one. Try to get that speed up. Shoulders burning, hopefully. yummy. And relax. Okay, guys. Yeah. So constantly, hips constantly firing. Bruce has his steady felt these glutes, which is great. Feeling it in your core and those muscle groups that we're using for punches. Hopefully you felt that there, yeah? Excellent, cool. Okay, guys. Everyone feet together, 100 music. And we push. Excellent.
Okay. 10 minutes, line up. Sit up. 멈춰. 카운트. 조니, 레이.